Hi, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and welcome to our fourth lesson in the BERNINA software building blocks. Now, this month, it's all about fancy editing and really fine-tuning your skills to make things stitch out perfectly, to be kind to your machine, and to save some time if you don't want to stitch those decorative stitches manually at the sewing machine. If you're unfamiliar with the BERNINA Building Blocks program, well, it kind of lives in two places here at BERNINA of Naperville. First and foremost, the master videos, the ones that Debbie Lashbrook from BERNINA of America put together, well, that lives on the BERNINA direct to customers like you Skill Hub. So the BERNINA Skill Hub is a site where you can find all different kinds of wonderful tutorials and really deep diving instruction on your BERNINA 990, your 7 series machines, your sergers, all kinds of stuff, and also the BERNINA building blocks. And the BERNINA software building blocks are meant to really enhance your skills using your BERNINA embroidery software, because we all know there is so much to learn with the software. So Debbie Lashbrook spearheads all of these videos. She creates them, she does the lesson plans and all of that stuff. And she is just a wealth of knowledge. And what she does is she kind of breaks it down into what you can do with Creator, what you can do with Designer Plus, and then gives you, some little guidelines to go by so that you can do the exercises on your own. Well, where do we come in? Well, BERNINA of Naperville comes in because I kind of take that content from Debbie Lashbrook and then I break it down into the real world with projects. Like, how would you actually use this stuff? I mean, how many of us take pictures on our phone but then never print them out? Well, this is kind of the same thing, making all of these cute embroidery designs, but then do you really take the time to stitch them out and apply them to a project? So that's what I'm trying to do for you. So with that said, this month's lesson, we've put together 3 easy projects with what we've stitched out. We're making a zippy clutch, and I hope you like it because we're using some fun little zippers and things like that. We are making a little towel with embellished decorative stitches and some other accoutrements. And then finally, we're going to turn her son, Debbie is her, by the way, we're going to turn her stained glass exercise into a sun catcher. So enough talking, let's go over to the computer and see what's going on this month. Okay, so where are we this month? We're on lesson 4 and we're exploring creative tools in the software, and there you can see our 3 projects. So don't forget, you're watching our BERNINA of Naperville video tutorial right now, but if you sign up for our lessons, you sign up for our BERNINA Skill Hub portion that we put together, you're going to also be getting this presentation deck that I'm working with right now, and you will have a link to watch what you're watching now directly on YouTube. And our videos, by the way, live forever. The BERNINA Skill Hub videos do have a shelf life. They expire in 2 years. But come on, you better watch these videos within 2 years. Come on. So where do you get your BERNINA of America stuff? Well, I talked about this already a little bit in the intro, but you are going to get it from the BERNINA site, the BERNINA Skill Hub. And if you want more information, all you have to do is just watch this video. And once again, this link is a hot link in your presentation deck that you'll get if you sign up for this, and you can watch any links and videos and download any other information that you might need for expanding this lesson. So there's loads of instructions from BERNINA of America to help you make a perfect project. So their instructions this month are going to include editing pattern fills handout, editing pattern runs, creating stitch recipes, pattern stitches presentation, stained glass exercise, and additional adding the travel stitches. So there's a BERNINA of America video that Debbie walks you through. I talked about that in the intro, and that is streamed on the BERNINA of America educational platform, the BERNINA Skill Hub. And here's a link to it right here. And the BERNINA of America files that they're providing is the stained glass artwork, so you can create that from scratch, and prepped files for reference, just in case you get into a bind and you're like, I really want to stitch this out, but help, I've screwed it up. Please let me just stitch Debbie's designs, and there you have it. So what you're going to learn. So in the Bernina produced portion of the lesson 4 Bernina software building blocks, there is an advanced editing or pattern fill and run stitches. So that one's really fun. You can see the exercise just here where you can learn to take a pattern fill and alter it in many different ways to get so many different looks out of one pattern fill. I'm going to show you how to do something like that too, but we're working with a specific project, whereas Debbie's just having you make these circles and stitch out swatches, if you like, for the different exercises. You're also going to learn about copying object properties and applying them to another object. Debbie takes you through this, and I'm going to touch on that in our zippy purse or zippy pouch or quilted purse, whatever you want to call it, exercise. You're going to learn to adjust fill density and change underlay options in the stained glass piece. And we're going to learn how to convert a satin outline stitch to a block digitized object in one click. Now, these are just the takeaways that I'm getting from the lesson. We're going to learn so much more in this lesson, so you're going to want to stay tuned. So some of the supplies you're going to need: fabric and stabilizer. So for the pattern fill and pattern run exercises, you're going to want to have some solid fabric on deck with medium tearaway stabilizer that will fit in your large oval hoop and your maxi hoop. For the stained glass exercise, I recommend organza white sheer fabric and 2 layers of aquamesh water-soluble stabilizer and 1 layer of Badgemaster stabilizer to fit the medium square clamp hoop. And we have stitched our examples out with isocord embroidery thread for the top and bobbin fill for the bobbin, except for the stained glass exercise where we are matching our bobbin thread in the top and bobbin because the sun catcher needs to be beautiful on both sides. Now, another thing before we get involved into projects and all of that stuff right here, we like to stitch out the samples, and this month we recommend that you give that a try, maybe with some smaller pieces before you work on a complete project. So what are our practical lessons? So this is what Bernina of Naperville is bringing you, a practical lesson. You know, Gayle, this is fun, whatever, but how am I going to do this in the real world? So for lesson 4, we decided to focus on the following topics and apply them to 3 fun and easy projects. So we're going to play with pattern fill to create texture for a quilted zippy bag. You can see it right down here. I also added some extra things that Debbie didn't touch on, like the globe effect and also a wave effect. We're going to create our own stitch recipe, or we're going to adapt Debbie's stitch recipe for an embroidered embellishment on the edge of a hand towel. And here you can see I even snuck in adding some applique trim or ribbon and some other little trim pieces there. And then we're going to do the stained glass technique that she created to make a pretty sun catcher. But what I'm going to cover mostly with this is how you're going to see the differences of when you use the travel stitches, which is the bonus exercise, or you're doing just stitching it out at face value without refining it, and you're really going to see the differences in what happens there. So before you begin, let's take a moment to create texture appropriate for a quilted bag. So our design fits a Bernina giant hoop for the new 990, but you can make whatever size you want. In fact, we actually stitched our bag files out using our E16 Pro. But before you begin, let's watch what's new with the latest Bernina embroidery software update. Now, I'm not going to make you watch this within the confines of this video that you're watching now, but when you get this handout, when you sign up for our lessons, you're going to simply click on this link. It's going to take you to the Bernina produced video on changes with update 9.2. And then there's also another video about start and end positions. And there's the little icons for those videos. So please check those out. And then our quilted zippy bag. So we're going to take a moment to start this one. And I'm hoping at this point that you will maybe pause me right now and go watch the actual Bernina of America content over on the Bernina Skill Hub using your access codes and all of that good stuff so that you will, you'll know enough to be dangerous and follow along with this exercise that I'm doing. So like I mentioned, our design is going to fit in the Bernina Giant Hoop for the new 990, but if you're working on a different machine model, you can use the files to create yours in your favorite hoop. So I have an image that is the top half, which is what you're looking at right here, and then there's another side to this bag, which is the bottom half. You can also download all of my little files here because I separated this so that it is color coded, and you can see it here. So follow Debbie's instructions from the Bernina Building Blocks lesson on editing pattern fills to fill each section with a variation of heirloom pattern file number 724. It'll make sense if you watch her video, I swear. But I've provided you these graphics. This is the back, this is the front side of the bag, and this is the back side of the bag. And this is just a way for you to be able to easily digitize this. So these files right here are going to be found right here. You're going to download those images. And then here's what I created. So this is the front part of the bag with, I did a little pattern run here, and then these are pattern fills right here in the bag. There's the globe effect. Down here on this one, you can see I've applied some of Debbie's alteration techniques, and I've also applied wave effect here, and I played with my own pattern design here. And so we're going to use auto digitizing. We're going to edit fill stitches. We're going to use pattern fill. We're going to adjust object properties for various effects. We're going to copy and apply object property settings and so many things. So why am I talking to you about this right now? Let's go to the software and get started. Okay, let's start by loading our picture. Now I'm going to work in the giant hoop, so I'm going to use both of my color pictures. But if you want to work in a smaller hoop, then you just simply pick one or the other and do them individually. But I'm picking mine together. And then this comes in true to size. And now I can use the wheel to zoom in and zoom out and all of those good things. That wheel is right on my mouse. And now I want to start auto digitizing, and I'm going to use Magic Wand for this. And Magic Wand is in our auto digitizing drawer right here. So I'm going to select it. And then when I click the picture, it's going to ask me to do a little bit of prep. So I want this to be 9 colors. So I am simply going to slide this little less colors bar until the number of stitches reads 9. All right, perfect. Now we just say okay. And it read 9 colors because there is our filled colors, and then this has just a little bit of a outline that's black. So there's possibility that you could click see right there in those little lines just in between there like that, but we're not going to do that. We're going to just leave that. And so we can go around the design and just do everything all in one fill stitch and then come back and change stuff. So let's do that. So what we're going to do first is we're going to just simply pick pattern run, or pattern fill rather. That one's down here. Pattern run is when we do a single outline, and pattern fill is when we're filling a whole area. So we can pick pattern fill right there. And now I'm going to click on this navy blue piece. And then you can see, if we zoom in, that it's created the default stitching there. And you could even click on that and pick a different color so that you can see a little bit easier. I'm going to go to the object properties, and I'm going to change my fill stitch to the pattern run,
and you can see it there. And we're going to go into that heirloom folder that Debbie used, and we're going to pick 724, OK, and apply. And I'm not going to close this window yet, but you can see there is the default stitching of how this design turns out. Now, I do want to warn you that with mine, because I'm making a larger project, I wanted my fill to be larger. So I just pretty much doubled everything here. So I said 46. All the way down the line here. So everything is proportionate. All right, then I'm going to apply. And you see how the fill stitch increased in size. Okay, so now I am going to close this. And now I want to go back to my magic wand. And now I want to do this light blue, green, yellow, red, pink, and purple. And now what you might also notice is that my colors match when I do the auto digitizing, but also they're all that original default design. So I'm going to turn my picture off for a second so that we can have a better look here. So what I want to do now is take my first design and right click. See that first one? I'm going to right click that and I'm going to copy object properties. Then I'm going to select this one, hold down Control and select all my other little colors, and then right click and apply object properties. So now they all have the same fill stitch, and now it's just a matter of tweaking each one as we go. So you might have wondered why we wouldn't have changed our stitching here to be the stitching, not the default stitching as we click around. And that's simply just because I don't want to mess with the default settings in my software. So I would rather make my one thing, apply my fill stitch, and then change them all at the same time. And it's easy with that apply or copy object properties that's located in this little pop-up menu when you right click on your design. All right, so now let's have some fun. So we're going to pick the little blue one right here, this area right here. And we can go to object properties and move our box aside so we can see what's going on here on the left side. And here are the adjustments that I had made, but let's do an offset. So let's see what happens here if we do a 1, if we do a 1/2 inch offset and apply. Not that exciting. Let's do a 2-inch offset. Ooh, that's looking better. See how I can almost get that lined up? So I'm going to just, let's go to 1.75. Accidentally hit OK. That happens to me often. Okay, so 1.75 isn't quite enough. Let's do 2.25. Oh, that looks pretty good. We're looking pretty good there. In fact, I'd be willing to just go ahead and save that one. So let's zoom in. All right, pretty cool. Let's click on our next one and see how I can still have this object properties box open, but now I can work with this one. So now let's just change some of the spacing. Let's increase our spacing here to 0.8 and apply. That's kind of cool. Why not keep that one, right? And see what that looks like. You know what? I don't have any problem with that one. And now let's go down here and change our size. Let's do this one a little bit smaller. Let's do 0.3. And see how it got narrower? What if we did 0.3 here as well? But now we can see that the spacing has increased if we say apply between the rows. Let me change that to a color that's different just so you can see. See that difference? Now let's go here to our little circle. And now let's have a look here and see what could happen if we make it on an angle. So let's take this piece and do 45 and apply. And it made it go at a 45-degree angle. Pretty neat, huh? And then as we go through this one, we could do other things. Let's do some overlap. So let's do our offset at -1. That's not that exciting. Now let's decrease our column spacing. Ooh, that one's weird. Let's do 0.3. Let's do just a little bit closer together. Let's do 0.2. It went more than 0.2, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. And that's a totally different look. Now you may or may not like it, but it's a look, right? And now let's keep this one exactly this way. So I'm just going to say okay. So there are our fill stitches. Now what I want to do at this point is select all, Control A on the keyboard, and I want to change everything to color number 1. So that everything's even here. And now what I'd like to do on this spot, right here, this one, I want to add the globe effect. So if we do the globe effect, it is this icon right down here that looks like the 3D globe. And then see how it bulged it out like that? Well, I don't want the whole thing to look like that. So I'm going to go over to my reshape object and I'm going to adjust my circle. And you can see how it comes to life there like that. And up here, I have the other part of the circle. Here we go. And I'm just going to work on making this an orb. And then I can touch this middle node and move it where I want in the space. And then I can look at it in artistic view. Oops. Ta-da! All right, so now let's go down here and see what wave effect does on this one. So if we take this and we apply wave effect, which don't get it confused with the elastic fancy fill settings. We want wave effect. So we're going to touch this one and it waves it out like this, but I want it to be waved like this. So I'm going to use my reshape object and I'm going to move my nodes on the wave until it's following the curve of my shape. Pretty easy, right? Okay, so you'll notice that I have about 3 blank areas. So this one I want to just manually digitize, and this one I want to manually digitize. So let's just select in our digitizing folder our closed object tool. So I'm going to start in this corner. Ignore this little orb for right now, and I'm right-clicking to go around this circular shape. There's a little. So now I'm going to do 2 left clicks here. And now I'm going to hit enter on the keyboard. Then I'm going to select my design and I want to add a circle. So I'm going to go to Edit and add a hole. And I'm just going to do clicks around this. And now I have an opportunity to select this item, go to Object Properties, or I can select this item, which is the default setting, whatever, and I can right-click, copy object, and I can right-click, copy object properties, then select this one, right-click, apply object properties. Then I can go to object properties, and I'm already in my pattern fill. And now I'm going to select, and I'm going to look for another design, just to play around and have a little bit of fun. Let's try this one. And now let's apply. But let's play with our manual layout because sometimes I find that that one's easier than trying to mathematically type in different measurements here. So we're going to hit layout, and then that shows us some outlines right here. So the first design is where we can base our sizing. And then our second design here is where we can put the spacing together. And I'm going to zoom in really close here so we can all see. There we go. And then this one is the column spacing. But I want to make this more circular, so I'm going to disproportionately bring that down, move our top row into position, and then make sure this guy is in the right position. That looks good. Then all we have to do is hit Enter on our keyboard, and let's zoom out. And you can see what it did to that shape right there. So let's digitize this area right here. Closed object. Left click. There's that piece. Go over here to my selector tool, select it, right click, copy object properties, select this one and apply. Now I want to do the wave effect again. So I'm going to select that down here, go back to my reshape, and just like we did before, follow the curve of our piece. Be careful which nodes you're picking there. There we go. And then while I'm here, I can even add a little node and reshape my object even. So that was pretty easy, right? So now we've done our fill stitches and we could tweak them. We can do whatever we want here, but I want to add a little heart right along here, a little row of stitching, not a fill. So we're going to go to Open Object and we're going to select Pattern Run. And I'm just going to click and then right click, left click to set it. And we get that same old little default stitch, just like that one. But this time I'm going to go back to Object Properties. And I want to go to Outline Stitch, Pattern Run. And now I want to select some hearts. And this is the one I want, this heirloom stitch number A706. And I'm going to say OK. and I'm going to apply. And everything looks fine, except it's going the wrong way. So what we want to do is, unfortunately, we're going to have to delete this, and we're going to have to redigitize it, starting at the top. So if you have something going the wrong direction, just delete it and start on the other side and create it, and it will mirror that stitch so that it's turned around the way that you want it. Now, if you think that you want to reshape some of your objects, do you see how I kind of have a little gap there? I'm just going to go to reshape. And I'm going to delete some of my pointier nodes here and wiggle my curved pieces into position here on top of that other line. And then I just group a whole bunch of nodes together to select a whole bunch at one time. And then I look and see if I have any other weird overlaps. And it looks like I do right here. See that weird overlap? We're going to move that back into position. And sometimes you have to add a node to get it to look perfect. Once again, I don't really want points over here. And these were generated because of the auto digitizing. And this will just be a little bit easier for us to wiggle this into position nicely. So one thing that we could do is we could hold down Control and select some of our pieces here, like this. I didn't select every one. I only selected a few. And I could actually go into my Outlines and Offsets tab. Remember that one? And I can say satin line, the color, and how I want the designs to overlap, and say OK. And then that's going to generate a little satin stitch for me around my piece. I forgot to select that, so let's go ahead and do this one too. And then you can see I've got a little kerfuffle here, but no problem. We can select that. We might just have to move this node just a little bit and move this guy up just a little bit. There we go. So let's have a look at how easy the bag went together. So to stitch out your little zippy pouch, you're going to hoop one layer of poly mesh cutaway stabilizer with a layer of thin batting, and then you're going to place the fabric right side up. Now we stitched this out on our E16 Pro, which made it super easy. It was all one color, blah, 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 blah. But if you have a smaller hoop, you want to stitch the hoopings individually, one hooping for the front and one hooping for the back. And then assembly, remove it from the hoop, trim the embroidered pieces right up to the stitching line, and then you're going to cut 2 lining pieces the same size as the embroidered pieces. Prep the zipper. We actually added a little 2.5 by 2 inch tab to each end of the zipper. And also don't forget that if you're using the Make a Zippers or the Zippers by the Roll or whatever, you're going to put one tab on, then you're going to add the little zipper head, then you're going to add the other tab. And then I put this on using a zipper foot. No big deal. Just sandwich your pieces and then stitch one side, press, and then go to the other side and stitch. An important piece, if you noticed, is that I did adjust my zipper to be about an inch smaller than the width of my bag. And that's only because I opted to do the tabs.
So you're going to attach your zipper or insert your zipper in between the lining and the outside of the bag on one side, centering that shorter zipper right in the middle of your front piece. Then once that's stitched, you're going to press, then you're going to add it onto the other side and do the same thing and press. And you know, things wiggle and whatever, so you may have to trim the sides of the pouch. But once you finally have the front attached to the zipper and the back attached to the zipper, it's time to join the back and front of the bag with the lining back and front.
Then you're going to stitch around the bag. I did about a 1/4 inch seam allowance and leaving a 5-inch opening at the bottom of the bag so I can turn it inside out. And then I stitched the bottom of the lining together and pressed my bag, and voila, there it is.
Once you have your pouch complete and you're ready for another adventure, why don't we have a look at some stitch recipes? Now, the best part about this is we've included some stitch recipe exercises from Bernina of America. And what you might like about this is if you want to use your sewing machine to do these, you can, but you can also apply these techniques into making your own stitch recipes using your Bernina embroidery software. So you're going to do the exercises with Debbie for her pattern run stitch recipe exercise. But I'm not going to really go into that and repeat this process and reinvent the wheel or anything. But what I want to talk to you about is what happens when things go wrong. Like maybe you click the wrong thing, or you don't follow step by step, or you think you know what you're doing, and then next thing you know, when you go to stitch it out, you've got a ton of jump stitches and you just don't know why. Well, let's look at this exercise that I made and you'll see there's a whole lot of wrong on this piece.
So here we are with a design that sort of is like Debbie's. The only thing is it's got some mistakes. And if we look here, let's zoom in. We can see that we have a cut point or a stop point and then an entry point. And what I'm looking at here, if I just take one of these designs and move it, see how like I've got a starting point here and an ending point here, a starting point here and an ending point here, and this is a jump stitch and this is a jump stitch. Well, things got screwy along the way somewhere, ladies and gentlemen, and that is just the way things go sometimes. So I want to show you how you can fix this. We can also look here, and if you don't have the keen eye that I do, we can zoom to fit here and we can watch this stitch out. So let's go ahead and watch our stitch out. And we can see that the first little area that was included here looks fine. I'm going to just speed this up a little bit so we can get through these guys. And even our middle piece looks fine. But here, look at this. It's a jump stitch from here to here each time we stitch this out. And that's annoying. And I don't want that because that either is going to slow down my machine and make me have lots of cuts, or it's just not going to look pretty on the backside. You know what things look like with thread away sometimes. They have those long tails under them. So I want to fix this because clearly I made a mistake when I did this process. Oh, look, it's back here again. I got another one back here. So I've got to fix this row here, and this last row of our combination. No worries. So I'm going to get out of my play mode here, and I'm going to go to my selector tool. And I'm going to select my top row. And then I can either mirror, and that may or may not fix my problem, right? So let's have a look at that. So I just mirrored this row. Here it was before, And now here it is again. Okay, before, after. Now let's stitch it out again. Nope, still same problem. All right, so this is a task for tedious. So I am simply going to take each one of these and mirror them individually. And I think you can already see that we're kind of fixing our issue here, right? See that? See how our little break is going away? So what that's done, it's reversed where it's starting and stopping in the middle of this piece. And this was one of those pattern stamps. And if you don't follow Debbie's instructions implicitly, you can have a little kerfuffle like this. But now I'm pretty happy with the way that that looks. And then we're just going to do the same thing down here. But this piece is grouped, so I'm going to ungroup it. And now here we go with our fixing. See, look at that. Beautiful job, everybody. Beautiful job. All right, that looks good. Now, if I wanted, I can select this piece and then mirror it to avoid that long jump stitch here. So now we're going to go over to this piece and ungroup it. And we're going to do the same thing because this one had an issue, remember? And we have to mirror our pieces individually. No big deal. Just sometimes if we don't pay attention or we miss a little step, we can have an issue. That looks pretty good. So that's how we fix it. And then once we stitch it out, we have great success. And I even enjoyed when I made my little towel piece, I added the little trim in between the little fan kind of stitch and the star stitch. And then when I added my piece onto the towel, I inserted some of our little fringy trim. All right, let's take a moment to dissect the stitch out of Debbie's stained glass sun catcher. Now, in her video, she does talk about doing the digitizing and reducing the stitch spacing for the fill stitch to make it more see-through. And she talks about working with the underlay stitching and traveling on edge and all of that. And she has you save it at a point before the travel stitch exercise. So we stitched out a piece without the travel stitches, and we experimented a little bit to see what the backside of our stained glass piece would look like. Now we have taken 2 layers of aqua mesh and 1 layer of Badge Master, and we put them in a hoop. So when I'm working on my 990 in the classroom, I'm using the medium square clamp hoop. And then the one out in our showroom, I'm using the maxi hoop. Now the maxi hoop is the one that does not have travel stitches. So the maxi hoop one, in theory, is going to look a little bit different than the one that the travel stitches have been added to. Another little bit of housekeeping for this is that I did match my thread colors top and bottom so that these pieces would virtually be, you wouldn't be able to tell the back from the front, right? They're going to look perfect because this is going to hang in a window or somewhere where the sun will catch it, and I don't want to see any imperfections on the backside. Make sense? All right. Another thing that I experimented with is my 990 with the square clamp hoop in the classroom was stitching at jackrabbit speed, while my 990 in the showroom was stitching at regular speed. And there was a little bit of issues there because the faster we sew, the tighter the tension wants to pull. So there was a little bit of pulling away from that black leading because of how fast I had my machine set to. Finally, if you don't want to add travel stitches, and what travel stitches are doing is travel stitchings are eliminating the amount of times that the machine is going to cut jump stitches. And you know what? That's fine. We have beautiful cutters on our machines, but here's the problem. That puts a lot of wear and tear on your machine. You have to clean your thread catcher more often, all of those things. And if you can just simply add some travel stitches, your stitching time is going to increase and you're going to have less little picky things to pick out of the project. So if you have this software, please use the travel stitches. Please do this exercise with Debbie. It is going to be a life changer. Also, another thing that you just might want to be mindful of is on our new Bernina 990, we have our sewing summary, and in the sewing summary is where we can easily turn off, turn on, cutting our jump stitches, doing thread away, turning that on, turning it off, and everything is right there at our fingertips. And finally, one thing I wanted to add about this stained glass exercise that I didn't want to just go unnoticed is that if we digitize something with a satin outline stitch, so I'm just going to pick an open object tool and I'm select satin. If we break this apart, I want to show you that if I do this, I can, our reshape tool, I can smooth it out, I can do whatever, but it's still a line. If we take this and break it apart, now it's a block digitized rectangle. What does that mean? Well, that means that if we want to make something a point, we can just simply make a point and taper off our pieces here like this. So like if you're doing something and you want to just do like a little tail, but you don't want it to end squared off like satin stitching, you can select it, break it apart, and then it becomes block digitized. Let's do something else here. Let's digitize another line. Let's select our satin stitching. When we go into reshape, we can also adjust how wide it is just there like that. But look at the coolness factor that happens here. If I take this now and I break it apart, I can adjust my nodes and I can make all different sorts of shapes now out of that, and I can turn it into a fill stitch. I just thought this was a really cool thing that gets overlooked a lot.
What do you think? Pretty fun, huh? Are you excited to get started? Are you going to do at least one of these projects? Because even if you don't make a purse, you don't make a towel, whatever, it's really important to stitch the things out to see, did you really follow along with the lessons? You know, sometimes I think I'm following along and I still get some superfluous jump stitches and things like that. But I certainly enjoyed making our samples, and I hope that you will continue your journey with us for the building blocks. And you know, it's never too late to join, because once we produce our videos and our projects, they're going to stay on YouTube forever. And the Bernina of America ones are going to stay up on their building block session for 2 years. So you've got plenty of time to go back to lesson 1 and work through 1 through 3, and then join us here at lesson 4. And then speaking of joining us, you can join us back here again October 15th, Tuesday, October 15th at 10 a.m., and that's when we premiere our next lesson. But until then, if you want to see other cool things and tutorials and all kinds of stuff, you'll just want to check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's pretty easy to get there. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Happy embroidery. See ya.